Hello, everyone. I don't know yet if you can hear me, but this is the EU Circular Talks, Making the Right to Repair a Reality. And we are currently waiting for some more participants to enter the meeting. Okay, thanks. I see in the chat that you can hear me, so that's good. And we are now at how many participants? At 50 almost, so that sounds good. Maybe one more minute, and then we will start with the agenda. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Again, everybody joined now 57, I see. So my name is Arthur ten Wolde. I'm the Executive Director of Ecopreneur Europe, the European Sustainable Business Federation, representing over 3,000 sustainable SMEs and also large companies. And thanks to the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform for hosting this event, this represents also the EESC and the European Commission. So for making the organization possible, this was prepared actually by the ECESP, that's the abbreviation, Leadership Group on Sustainable Products. So with Ora Butler from the European Environmental Bureau, EEB, the EET Raw Materials, and also my own organization, Ecopreneur. Also, Orla will moderate questions from the audience later on via the chat, and then we will see which ones we can pick. We already received some very interesting questions beforehand. The event will be recorded and made available on the event page afterwards, and also with the presentations. And now I'm very glad that we have this event. It's also very timely because of the regulatory process, and it's an important topic which is also highly visible for consumers. And I consider it personally like a litmus test for the EU Green Deal. So now I'm looking at Alice Senga from the EESC. We would like to start and have some interaction with you as an audience already. We have a short poll, and the question is just to know who is there. What type of organization do you represent? And I just understood that this will be a word cloud. And I see the poll myself. And so now the score is 100% NGO. So yeah, exactly. Maybe a public organization or a repair shop, manufacturer, I see. Retail Business Association. And oh, I also see we're now at 63 participants. That's excellent. Risk advisory, consumer organizations, information technology industry. Very interesting for me also, what was it? It's already gone. Responsibility organization. Yeah, interesting. Refurbishment, repair, an organization from Slovakia. 41 answers. Okay. Still some to go, maybe a few more seconds. Okay, no, you're still typing. Good. Okay, Alice, maybe you can close this poll. So a lot of different organizations. I think that's the main thing. So we see from business. Do we also see somebody from the government? Not really. Yeah, national administration. So this is really quite diverse. So thank you. The poll is now closed. And then we move on to the first speaker. We have 4 speakers, 1 introduction, and then 3 speakers in a panel. And the first speaker is Susanna Halgren. She is the Administrator and Policy Officer at the European Economic and Social Committee.
Hello, thank you, Arthur. Yes, so I will just give a brief introduction of the EESC and the platform, and I will leave the right to repair topic to the experts. So before I go into the actual platform, 2 words about the EESC. It's an advisory body to the Commission, the Parliament and the Council, which acts as the bridge between civil society and EU decision makers. Our members represent European employers, workers and civil society organizations. And we deliver opinions on European policies and legislation, but also work on projects such as ECESP, which is the one I will present now. I will just share my presentation. You should be able to see it now.
Yes, we see it.
Perfect. So what is ECESP, the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform? On this slide here, you have a bit of an overview of the what, why, when, and who. It is an online platform driven by circular economy stakeholders across Europe, and it was set up to foster knowledge exchange and to speed up circular transition. It's been in place since 2017, and it is hosted by us, the EESC, as well as the European Commission. But importantly, it is led by a coordination group of 24 members. As Arthur already mentioned, I will show you here an overview of the 24 members that we have, 3 of which are organizing this EUCT today, and they are conveniently placed one after the other in this mapping. These members are carefully selected from civil society organizations, businesses and trade unions, think tanks, research centers, and public bodies that have a stake in the circular economy. So what are the activities of the platform? Our main activity is an annual conference, which usually takes place towards the end of February or early March every year. We also have activities of the different coordination group members, which means that these organizations host events and activities on their own and invite each other and foster this knowledge exchange, which is really the whole aim of the platform. They also organize leadership groups which host EUCTs, EU Circular Talks, such as this one. So as Arthur mentioned, this one is organized by the Leadership Group on Sustainable Products and Design. And these are platforms to exchange knowledge with the wider public as well, because the leadership groups don't only contain the coordination group members, but also other important stakeholders in circular economy. And finally, the platform publishes circular content, such as events, reports, and news, which are submitted from various stakeholders across Europe. So anybody, individual organization, anyone can submit content that can be posted on the website. And here are some figures to display that. On the website, we have over 90 coordination group initiatives. We have over 500 knowledge items, over 750 good practices, and over 800 events on the circular economy. And if you have some time, I invite you to go and click around. For example, there is a company in Antwerp, in Belgium, that produces handbags and accessories out of recycled salmon skin. So it's really something that is very interesting to see the different projects that are going on across Europe. Finally, if you would like to keep up to date, there are different ways of doing that. For example, through these interesting EUCTs. But we also have a monthly newsletter, which you could subscribe to via our website. And of course, LinkedIn and Twitter. And before I hand back the floor, I would like to say that the right to repair is very present on our website. You can find different activities on this topic. And for example, in February, we posted the the European Commission's call for evidence on the right to repair. So the platform is not only hosting different activities, but it's also a place to keep up to date on important calls through, for example, the Commission. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Susanna. Okay, so that is the background of this meeting and of the whole activities. Then I would like to give the word to. But before I do that, Shima, could you maybe turn off your camera if you're not speaking, so then we can give the whole floor then to Ada Preziosi, because that will be our next speaker, and she is from the European Commission, where she is the legal officer at DG, so that's Director General Justice and Consumers, and she will give an overview of the current and upcoming policy framework for repair. Ada, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Arthur. Hello, everyone. I'm not sure. I'll try to share the screen.
It works. It works.
It works?
Yes.
Yes. But do you see it in full screen?
I do.
Oh,
yeah.
now
I see you next to it.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here and to be able to talk to you indeed about this recent proposal for a directive on promoting repair of goods. Now, I would say that the topic here is very, very, very broad. And indeed, this is something to, I would say, bear in mind that indeed the Commission within its priority on European Green Deal is working on a large number of various initiatives that aim at fostering a sustainable production and sustainable consumption. And this proposal that we have published last month is just one element of this big picture of various initiatives that will help us to achieve this goal. Now, that being said,
Ada,
yes?
I just see that we see it pretty well, but we don't see it in the full screen mode yet. We still
Really?
see 4 pages or 5 pages below each other on the left side. So if you can click on anything, otherwise it's okay because we can't see it.
I'm trying because here I see. Maybe I'll just try to share again because indeed it was in my screen in full screen.
Okay.
Okay. Just a second. Let's try again.
Yes, that's it. Thanks.
Now you see it well?
Yes.
Okay. So for me now it's on another screen, so I have to check the other screen. Okay. So now you see the second slide?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so as I was saying, the Commission is working on a number of different initiatives, and this initiative in particular is very, very closely linked to 2 others. So to give you a bit of a broader background, I would just like to explain to you a bit more how these initiatives interact with each other. So when we talk about promoting repair, about giving consumers the right to repair, the first and foremost, what we need is to make products repairable by design, because without it, repair, it will not be possible. And this is why the Commission put forward a proposal for a regulation on eco-design for sustainable products. And indeed, the purpose of this proposal is to make sure that there are requirements for repairability and durability in place for producers to make sure that products that enter on the EU market are indeed repairable. Now, this is the precondition. Once we have these products that are repairable, then they enter into the shops and consumers should have enough information to make an informed decision on whether or not they want to buy this repairable product. So they need to know, they need to be able to compare repairability and durability characteristics of various products and then choose those that they want. If they want to engage in green transition and buy repairable products, they should have a full set of information to do this. And this is the objective of another Commission initiatives on empowering consumers in the green transition. Now, having products repairable by design and being able to choose them in the shop is still, in a way, the first and the second stage before the actual use phase. And this is the use phase that we are trying to address with our proposal, because this is there where the key question every consumer has to ask: if the product breaks, am I going to repair it or am I going to replace it, right? And here with this directive, with the proposal for a directive on promoting repair of goods, we are trying to look for ways to, we have tried to propose measures that will help consumers to rather say yes to repair more often than right now. And how we are going to do this. So in our analysis, in the study that we have been running for the preparation of the impact assessment, we have seen that there are a number of various reasons why consumers decide to repair or not. And the approach is quite different when it comes to defects that happen within the legal guarantee and beyond. And this is why we also looked at this from these both perspectives. Now, looking at beyond legal guarantee, we are proposing three basic measures. So the first one is European Repair Information Form. And here the idea is that we want to give consumers a right to ask any repairer before getting a repair service a written confirmation of the details of the repair service. So there will be a standardized format on which you could receive all the necessary information about the repair. So the price of repair, the duration, availability of additional services, for example, whether repairer offers you a replacement product during the repair, because all of this matters for the decision making of the consumer. And then what is important, these conditions would remain valid for 30 days so that consumers can take these documents, they can go to another repairer, they can get another form, and then they can compare and choose the repairer that suits best their need. And the second element is the obligation to repair for producers. So here, yet again, as I said at the very beginning of my presentation, to give a right to repair, it means the product has to be repairable technically. Otherwise, this is not possible. So this is why here, with the obligation to repair, we have decided to limit this obligation to producers of those goods for which repairability requirements exist. Now, a repairability requirement is a broad concept, but basically, to simplify, we could say that if there are requirements on availability of spare parts in specific product specific legislation like eco design, then normally producer would have a corresponding obligation to repair under this directive on promoting the repair of goods. So indeed, this obligation would be there. The difference between the legal guarantee and beyond legal guarantee, this right to repair, would be that producer would have to cover all sorts of defects, basically. So even as a consumer, if I buy myself a phone and I drop it on the floor and the screen is broken, it's basically my fault. I caused this defect, right? I caused the phone is broken right now, but still the producer would have an obligation to repair even in such a case. And this is why also we have decided to give the producer a chance to ask for a price, to charge a price for such repairs. Now the next obligation refers to the online platform. And so this is an element that is addressed to the member states who need to ensure that on their national territory, there is at least one national online repair platform that would allow consumers to find easily local repairers. It would also need to have a functionality of asking directly through the platform for a European repair information form. And also, interestingly, in order to boost the reuse, there also would need to be a possibility to look for sellers of refurbished goods and also those companies that want to buy products and then subject them to refurbishment. Now, in the context of the legal guarantee, there without going into too much details because we don't have much time, unfortunately. So here we have decided to change at the moment the possibility for sellers to refuse the remedy that is chosen by the consumer, because as you know, within the legal guarantee, normally consumers can ask for a free repair or replacement. And the seller, in exceptional circumstances, can, for example, refuse to replace the product if if a replacement is disproportionately costly. And now with this change in our proposal, we want to modify it and to actually oblige sellers to repair when repair is cheaper or at least as costly as replacement. Now, this is very much in a nutshell the main elements of the proposal. I'm happy to discuss further and looking forward to the presentations of other panelists. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ada, for clearly explaining the plans, the proposal from the European Commission. Maybe you can stop sharing your screen. Thank you. And then by the way, I see already the first question coming in from you as the audience. That's very welcome. So if you have any questions concerning the three introductions now, please put them in the chat and then we can discuss them later on if there is time, because there may be very many questions. So now to go on, I would like to introduce Christina Ganipini, the coordinator of Rights to Repair Europe, and she will give a presentation on the overall importance of repair. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you very much. I hope you can. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we see it
well.
completely working well. Yes.
Perfect. So I will start right away. We are the Right to Repair campaign. We are an organization which is a coalition of over 100 members in 21 European countries. We are a quite diverse coalition. So we have environmental NGOs, we have repairers, we have spare parts sellers, we have repair cafes. So there are plenty of different members. Some are actually represented today in the audience, so they're listening. So I would like to give a brief introduction. So why should we repair? We focus specifically in our coalition on electronic devices because they have a very, very big impact on the environment, and the lifespan of their utilization is, in our opinion, way too short. So basically, because electronic products have a high environmental footprint, we should keep them in use for longer, and this is why we need the right to repair in a nutshell. So because I was talking about a high environmental footprint, I thought I would just give you an idea of what we're talking about. Consumption of electronics has a very significant impact on the climate due to energy-intensive activities such as resource extraction, but also manufacturing and end-of-life treatment. To give you an idea, in the EU, 6 smartphones are sold every second, and the European smartphone life cycle is responsible for more CO2 emission than entire countries. And by extending their lifetime of just 1 year, we could save the equivalent of taking over 2 million cars off the road. So just so you have an idea. Also, in terms of waste, you probably know that e-waste is the fastest growing waste stream in the world. And to give you an idea, we do not only think about the waste that you produce when you actually throw out your devices, but for instance, before you actually get your iPhone, before you actually buy a smartphone, for instance, the production of the average smartphone generates 85 kilograms of waste. And maybe you can think, what about recycling? Well, globally, only 17% of the global amount of e-waste is actually recycled. And when we do recycle, not only do all the embedded emissions generated during production, transport, and recycling, not only they are, lost, they go up in smoke, but there are also many other valuable materials that are lost, because the vast majority of the critical raw materials that are needed for the production of electronics have almost insignificant recycling rates. We're talking less than 1%. Also, they are vastly demanded for other green technologies, such as electric vehicles. So the demand has doubled within a few years, and mining and extraction. I don't have time to go there, but it's really an environmental catastrophe and social catastrophe. So this, in a nutshell, why do we need to repair? Why do we need to keep our devices for longer? So what do we want as Right to Repair Europe? Something that was also mentioned by the Commission, actually, we want good design, basically, design for repairability, for ease of disassembly. We want fair and affordable access to spare parts, repair information, diagnose tools, software updates, and I'm gonna go there later on. And we want informed consumers. Now, what is in the Right to Repair proposal, and what is actually missing in our views? What are we still lacking that we would actually need to make the Right to Repair a reality? I'm gonna focus on this proposal, obviously, the Right to Repair proposal, but also because the Commission at the beginning was saying this is a proposal within a broader package. Let me tell you that I know also these other files that were presented by the Commission, so empowering consumers for the green transition and eco-design, and the things that are lacking, they are lacking in general, not only in this proposal, okay? So they are nowhere to be found in legislation, and also not in upcoming legislation. So, but to focus on this proposal, the proposal focuses on repair during legal guarantees for the most part, but also always within manufacturers' networks. So the obligation for sellers to repair devices within the legal guarantee is only effective when the cost of repair is equal or lower than the cost of replacement. This is a big limitation because we know that spare parts do not have fair costs. Sometimes they cost more than entire new devices. So if we are not tackling the cost of repair, we're not really making it available for consumers. So the scope of this obligation to repair is going to be really, really small. Then a question which is still open, and maybe Ada will be able to say something about it, is who should verify whether a repair would be more affordable than a replacement, and via which methodology? Because in our opinion, it's not very clear. In our opinion, also, the proposal completely sidelines the circular economy potential of independent repair providers. What we advocate for is a universal right to repair. So consumers should have the right to seek repair with any provider they choose, also during the legal guarantee period. Then there is, for beyond the legal guarantee period, there is an obligation for the manufacturers to repair. But as it was mentioned, this obligation only applies when a product is covered by eco-design measures. Because we know these eco-design measures very well, we know that only very few products are covered by eco-design measures. So again, the scope is very, very small. It's very limited. Also, nothing is foreseen, again, to ensure the affordability of such repairs. As we know that manufacturers determine the price of spare parts, they are also able to prevent use of third-party parts via software tricks. Basically, we have repairers in the audience, so they will maybe comment in the chat. They have very little to no competitive pressure from other repairers. So basically, if we are not taking care of the price and we are not tackling these anti-repair practices that keep the monopoly basically in the hands of the manufacturers, we don't see how the price is going to go down. And we don't think that an online platform where you can compare prices that are unfair to begin with, we don't think that that is going to be enough. The problem is that there is a competitive disadvantage of independent repairers. And if it's not addressed in the further negotiations of the proposal, and manufacturers will continue to have great control of repair, we don't see how the prices are going to go down. So In a nutshell, what is missing? A universal right to repair, where we have access to spare parts, where we have access to repair information, a ban on anti-repair practices, and also affordable repairs. That was it from me.
Okay, thank you, Christina, for this clear feedback on the European Commission proposal. Again, I see already questions coming in, so that's good for later and interesting in themselves also. And then I would now like to immediately continue with our third speaker in the panel, and that is Shima Labid. She is the Chief Strategy Officer at Refurbed. So this is about refurbishment. And that is the leading platform for refurbished consumer electronics in DACH, Sweden, Denmark, and Ireland. She's also in the membership of Ecopreneur Europe, and that's actually via Germany, so already a very international company. And Refurb was also voted Austria's most sustainable retailer, and she will give an industry stakeholder take on repair with the risks and opportunities. Shima, can you try sharing your screen?
Yes, thank you, Arthur. For the
Oh, your sound is breaking up. That's really unfortunate. Is there something you can do about your connection? We cannot hear you, Shima.
All right.
Or am I the only one? Maybe you can turn your camera off and share your screen. Is that possible?
Sure. Let me try again. Is it better now?
Yeah, the sound is now good.
Sound is good. Okay, then let me reshare.
But now I don't see your screen yet.
So now you should see my screen in full scale. Is that the case?
It's uploading. Just a moment. It's now blank for me. No, I don't see your presentation, unfortunately.
Okay, let me try again. Is it here now?
No. Okay, maybe just go back to share to you on the screen and then share your presentation. And then I hope that the sound will be good.
Okay, let me do a reshare. Can you see it now?
Just a moment. No. I wonder if I or Alice, could you maybe share the presentation? Because we have it. I can also try.
Sorry, let me give it one more try.
Sure. I don't see it yet. I'm now trying to do this myself, Shima, just a moment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Do you see it?
Not yet.
What about now?
Arthur, sorry, if you need your screen, I can share it myself.
I don't need it at the moment.
No, okay.
Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Right? Okay, good. So Shima, please go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I don't see it yet. It seems something is wrong with my connection. I suggest you take the questions first. Let me restart, check with my team manager, and I'll dial in 5 minutes. Is that all right?
Well, no, maybe it's not be necessary. At least I can see the first screen and I can click on. If you have maybe a separate screen with your presentation and notes, then we could just start now. Does everybody see the screen? Do you see it, Alice?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay,
yeah, it's good.
Just let me know if you want to go to the next slide, Shima.
Okay, perfect. So apologies for that delay. We just have some construction work in the office, so I think this is why the connection is a bit bad. So I said my name is Shima. I'm a Chief Strategy Officer of Refurbed. Refurbed is a leading marketplace for refurbished products. We were founded in Austria a couple of years back and now already on a European level. And I'm here today to represent sort of the private sector / refurbishment, independent refurbishers as well. Arthur, if you could move 2 slides forward, I want to share a bit around the opportunities that are opening up at the moment, and also the core out of which Refurbed was founded a couple of years back. So one is what Christina already outlined, really this movement to understand we cannot continue our linear economy as we did in the past. So sustainability is increasingly important, both for us as a society, but especially for consumers. Awareness is rising. Second, what we see with regards to product technology is down. So what does that mean? A couple of years back, if you would buy a new iPhone, you would really have a step change in what that product could do. Now with the latest models, we see maybe a slightly better processor, but essentially there's not so much progress anymore. So that offers us a great opportunity to increase product lifetime spans, actually, and encourage consumers to also keep their devices for much, much longer than they did in the past. And the third opportunity for refurbished in our industry is really the price component, right? I mean, we see a lot of pressure on consumers' wallets, purchasing power is going down, prices for new products are rising. So it's really an opportunity also for repair and refurbished to increase the purchasing power again for consumers. So against these 3 trends, Refurbed was founded. Arthur, if you can now go to the slide on the Refurbed revolution, sort of. The idea was to take these trends and understand how can we really extend repair and refurbishment into a really, really big scale, into a scale where consumers are comfortable buying refurbished, where we can really push the market in a way that can really drive change. So what we have at the moment is over 18,000 refurbished products, really starting from refurbished repaired phones to laptops, tablets, up to really e-bikes and watches that are essentially, tested, repaired, graded, and then work like new with, of course, some visible scratches. They come with similar product features like a new product, like a 1-year warranty. Overall, however, they are cheaper. And of course, most importantly, they reduce CO2 emissions, electric waste, and water usage. And we have partnered up with the Fraunhofer Institute, who estimated that around up to 70 to 80% CO2 can be saved with a refurbished, repaired device versus buying a new device. So that's really a huge step change. What we also do, we not only sell refurbished devices, we also buy back old devices from consumers. So encouraging consumers to give back their old devices, also getting paid for that is really important to get all these phones that are lying in our homes back. And through our partner network, these devices are again repaired and then again brought back into the cycle. So a device lifetime can be extended up to 4 times actually, which is great. If you now move on, Arthur, to the next slide, how does a refurbishment process look at its core? So very simplified speaking, 5 main steps. So starting with data cleansing, so our partners checking that the device is really clean of any stored information, testing the devices for software and hardware functionality, renewing them optically, so cleaning or polishing. I have some imagery on that on the next slide. And then most importantly, exchanging faulty components. So really exchanging things like battery, a display, and sourcing also spare parts from other devices that might be partially broken. And we call this spare parts harvesting. So really taking also parts from other devices and plugging them in to make a device functional again. And then finally, the grading. That's a super important step to generate trust for the consumer, is that we give each device a grade A, B, C to say, this looks as new, this looks almost as new with a couple of scratches, to be super clear what the consumer is buying. And we get this question a lot: how do you engender trust? How do you create trust? And this is really a very important step. If you go on the next page, Arthur, a couple of images from our partners where you can see that really each device is sort of taken apart, tested, cleaned, and then sort of packaged and sold via Refurbed to our consumers. We have around 2 million consumers already in Europe. So this is really picking up, which is great to see. If you go on the next page, how we look at the whole topic is out of 3 angles. One, we need to really convince consumers to have trust in refurbished and second-hand devices. How do we do that? Through a platform that guarantees the quality, that guarantees a return, that guarantees, customer service. We also believe we need to have positive examples for businesses, how you can make refurbished and a circular economy model really work also in the long run. And we've also started actually selling refurbished devices to businesses. And then the last point is really getting active also at the core in the policy-making progress. We bring forward proposals to various stakeholders, Commission, Parliament, and a part of, for example, European Refurbishment Association and Right to Repair. We really believe we need to bundle our power to push for more circular policies in the long run. And then finally, with regards to the right to repair, if you go to the next page, Arthur, I think Christina has said a lot of things that we 100% support. I just want to complement with a couple that we really think are key to make this a large-scale phenomenon. One is really to have repairability really by design, which was mentioned already. But also really prefer repair before replacement. So currently we have heard that manufacturers only have to repair a product if it's cheaper, but then if they're not repairable by design, very often that can be more expensive than replacing it. So we need to think it very holistically. Only if manufacturers are really obliged to repair a product, they will ensure it is also repairable. The second one is also very important. We need to really be very clear and comprehensive in banning practices that hinder repair. And this is not only about planned obsolescence, which Christina has already touched upon. It's also a practice around part pairing or serialization, so which basically means every component in a smartphone has a unique identifying number. And certain manufacturers, for example, use software to only allow one specific battery in one specific phone. And if this specific battery is exchanged, the phone will display an error message, for example, unless this change is improved by the manufacturer. And that's really a problem, very practical. You can imagine then a consumer getting an alert on his or her phone, which then, of course, makes the consumer very distrustful of this repaired device. And there's nothing wrong with it, but just getting this information on your phone is, of course, not the most trust engendering thing. So super important to ban those practices from our point of view. And then the third one is really to give access to repair information, but also original spare parts, which is currently limited by manufacturers. So in our view, independent repairers should be able to have that access at a really reasonable price. And manufacturers should be obliged to allow repairs with used and compatible spare parts and not only the original. So what you can imagine, many repairers buy bulk of second-hand phones, and then some are not working anymore, but some of the spare parts like a display or a battery might be still working. So by being able to taking that out, putting it into another phone, you can really increase the lifespan and reduce waste. And then lastly, if a product is no longer repairable, it should nevertheless be available for what I just described, parts harvesting, reuse. So in our point of view, recycling should just be the very last step. And then to round off.
Yes, because the time is up, Shima. So I showed the screen, but actually I think we should move to the final, to the discussion. So thank you. I'll just now try to stop sharing my screen, and that should be working like this. And now I'm getting back the regular screen again. Yes, okay. So thank you. Well, thanks to all of you. And then now we will move on to reactions from the panelists to each other's presentations. So now we have a panel discussion, really. So if Ada, Christina, and also if possible, Shima can show your screen, and then we'll see how it goes with the sound. And then first of all, I would like to ask Ada to respond to the other two presentations. And since we have now already lost quite some time, each of you gets 3 minutes.
Okay, well, then this is not much. Well, thank you both for your presentation. Indeed, very interesting. I think it is clear that we are all on the same objective. When I was just looking at your slide, Christina, it's exactly the work that we did for identifying the problems, like all the consequences for the environment. So I think at least we share this common element, and I think we have the similar goals. It's just that sometimes when implementing measures, it's not always so easy to implement big ideas in practice into a piece of legislation. Maybe something that just mentioned on the element that you raised on the legal guarantee, because I think maybe there is some confusion there. The thing is that in our proposal, what we want to focus is the consumer reaction, right? So we want to enhance basically more repairs on the market by limiting, in a way, consumers going for repair instead of going for replacement instead of repair. And the thing is that within the legal guarantee, at the moment, consumer can choose, right? I'm going to repair or I'm going to replace, and most consumers choose replacement. And in our study that we have carried out for this proposal, it turned out that if consumer doesn't come up with a choice, the seller usually offer repair anyway, and this is what we want to achieve.
And now I
Replacement.
lost. Okay, Ada is back.
Sorry?
We lost your last sentence. Sorry.
Okay. So I was just saying that in fact, it's consumers that want to have products replaced, and this is one of the bottlenecks opportunity to say no to when consumer says I want to have it replaced, and then seller can say no, I will repair it because repair is cheaper for me. Because this, for many products that we have seen, this is what sellers want to do. They are just blocked by consumer wish to replace. And this is maybe a little bit the background of what we were discussing. On the universal right to repair and access to spare parts, of course, I think we all agree that this has to be done. You mentioned that not enough is done at the moment in the eco design, and also that the scope is limited also to the
Ada, can you maybe also stop sharing your screen because we lost you again?
Hello, I think I'm back.
Yes, you're back, but could you maybe stop sharing your screen because that might help with the sound.
Sharing the screen.
If you, sorry, I mean your camera.
The
if you
camera.
could, yes. Sorry.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So on the scope, so indeed, for the moment, there is a limited number of products that are in the scope of the proposal. However, new eco-design requirements are going to come into place. So we will see an extensive increase in the applicability. And maybe one last point on Christina's presentation there also is that the obligation to repair is only limited to the products under eco-design. Other measures, so the online platform and the European Repair Information Form, will apply across all the products. So all the consumers of having broken all types of products have a right to benefit from these measures. And now on Nishima's presentation, so it was very interesting to see indeed how this refurbishing process look like. I think you both also with Christina raised the point of pairing, the issues of serialization. Indeed, this is a problem for certain products. We had to come up with a proposal on a more horizontal approach. So I do believe as this is more linked to the product requirements and there in more specific product eco-design measures, this element will be taken up. I don't want to take more time because I think I already went over 3 minutes. Thank you.
No, thank you, Christina. This is very important. So then I give the word to Christina.
Yeah, I think you just said. I think you just told her thank you, Christina. But just for clarification, that
Sorry,
was Ada.
thank you, Ada.
That was Ada from the European Commission,
Yes.
who responded to many of the points that I raised. So thank you for that. Ada was saying that in her opinion and following the study, consumers are often in the way of repair, basically, because during the legal warranty they ask for replacement. Well, I think we have different data there, because if you look at the latest Eurobarometer survey, 77% of people want to repair. So a vast majority of people want to repair. If we look at how many people support our campaign, lots of people want to repair. If you look at how many people go to repair cafes, it's a global movement. So there are lots and lots of people that realize the potential of repair and that want to repair. You were saying during the legal guarantee, how long is the legal guarantee? In most places in Europe, 2 years. Is that enough? No. When we talk about extending the lifespan of devices, we mean, for instance, we did a campaign for using the same smartphones for 10 years. That's something that would have an impact on the environment. Just changing what happens within the first 2 years, we don't think that that's the point, really. Also, you were mentioning eco-design. Eco-design will evolve, so the scope will be broader. Eco-design evolves, but in such painfully slow manner. At the moment, we just have 8 product categories that are covered by eco-design. How many products, how many different tech products do we have around us in our home just right now? Like, this is so far away from the reality. Also, not only it's evolving painfully slow, whenever things are actually approved, we have pushback from the industry that introduces supplementary delays. So after the legislation actually comes into place, they further delay repairability requirements. We have seen that for smartphones. So we really don't think that the approach that has been taken is going far enough. I do agree we have the same objective, but we need to be much more serious about the tools and what we put into place. We need to ban anti-repair practices. We need to give access to spare parts and to all the different tools we need. So that was my reaction.
Okay, thank you. And then I give the word to Shima.
Yes,
And we see you and we can hear you.
Yes, many apologies for before the situation. No, I can only echo what Christina has said. I think maybe something to add from our side. We would also think it would be great if the public sector can serve as a role model by setting requirements and targets for example, purchasing repaired and refurbished products through public procurement regulations to really take a first step, because we look at it in 3 tiers, right? We have the private consumer, we have businesses, and then the public sector. And we see actually with the private consumer that most of the barriers are in terms of trust and price transparency. So what we know from our consumers, what withholds them from buying and going more into repair is really that they sometimes don't trust what they're getting, and there is no common sort of quality threshold. And I think this we need to sort of address with quality standards, the returns, that people can go to a central place, be it a repair cafe or be it like we are a marketplace on a larger scale. I think for businesses, they're slowly jumping on that bandwagon, but the reality is still a lot of them want to have new and the latest devices, which is super difficult. So we think the public sector should also take a step forward. And for example, in France, already 20% of electronic equipment bought by the public sector must be refurbished or repaired. So I think if we then also see more of this demand pull, that this would also create, I think, just more pressure or a better movement to also go much further in the regulation, because I fully agree with Christina, it's the right step, but the consumer groups and the European Parliament have been asking for it for many years already. So it's a right step, but for us, it's also way too slow. We think if it's fully built out, it could really push forward demand and supply in the market and really, really make it feasible on a grand scale. And as I said, the impact is massive. I mean, the 70% that we calculated jointly with Fraunhofer is on one device. You save 70% of emissions, which is really, really huge. So for us, it's really how can we extend the market? And again, for us, the proposal also doesn't go far enough. I think it's a really good step. I just think, as with any other area with regards to climate impact, we're just still too slow and it's still not ambitious enough.
Okay, thank you, Shima. And thanks all speakers. Normally, I would ask for an applause, but this may be a bit difficult online. What I would like to do is now ask Alice Senga from the EESC to engage you again, audience, because now we're switching to you. But first of all, I would like to have a poll. There it already is. So the question in the second and last poll is, what do you think of the right to repair proposal? Do you think it's excellent? Do you think it's okay or unrealistic, not ambitious enough, or too complex? And so this is a multiple choice. You can do one choice and then we will see the results. I also have it myself. I don't see the results at the moment, and maybe I have to answer something. Let me do that and then see what I can see on the screen. Yeah, there I see it. Okay, so on top right now with 56% is not ambitious enough. We also get okay, that's a great number 2 with 32%, and then the others are with unrealistic, 6%, and 4% says it's excellent. Okay. Let me just, we already have 48 answers from 93, so that's about half has answered, or maybe the other halves are not paying attention anymore or don't know how this works. I hope you get this poll on your screen and you just have to pick one of the options and then say send. I'll wait for maybe 30 more seconds. That leads to a lot of okays, good. And still some more are coming in. Yeah, okay. Also, it becomes even more interesting because now it's like, okay is moving up to the not ambitious enough. Okay, we're now almost at 60 answers. I think it won't change fundamentally anymore. So the answer seems to be, most people, about 50% in the room, seems to think it's not ambitious enough. That's interesting. And then 1/3 thinks it's okay. And then a few think it's excellent. And some think it's really, 5% think it's really unrealistic. Okay, I think this is very interesting background information. And now we come to the questions from the audience. And the first one I would like to set this to any speaker. This is about the following. The right to repair is, actually the repairing itself is labor intensive. Why do we tax labor? Should we instead implement one of the founding principles of the EU, taxing pollution and the use of resources? What economic and tax incentives can be given to repairing? And just to add to this from the Ecopreneur perspective, Ecopreneur is very much in favor of incentives for the circular economy, including repair. And we are supporting a tax shift from labor to resources in general, and also extended producer responsibility with eco-modulation that could almost be applied here, but it has to be done by the member states. So this is for any speaker. So who wants to respond first? Christina.
Yeah, I'm also obviously interested in hearing what Ada has to say on this question, because we indeed as a campaign have been pushing for repair incentives. We have seen big success stories in Austria. The first repairability bonus was offered there. It was such a success at local level that it was extended to federal states and then national level. Then we also saw it in the state of Thuringia, where again it had to be renewed because there were so many demands that people really, they couldn't keep up, so they had to extend it. And now it was also launched in France. So we see that repair incentives that work in different ways I won't go into the financing detail, but they can be financed via tax. They can be financed in different ways. They really work and they are big success stories. So we are in favor of that, and we do wonder why not in the right to repair proposal? Why not at EU level?
If I can just answer, I think you answered yourself. You know, one of the principles of EU law is subsidiarity. If something works very well at the local level, why should EU do this? You know, so you're saying that there's just perfect examples of that things are going great in Austria, bonuses work, that it spurs now to France. You know, if it indeed one of the elements I think that has to be retained there is that first of all, on incentive levels, incentive be adapted to the local environments, and it's mostly for the member states. They know best how to do it. And secondly, for example, on taxes, we have limited competence as the EU on this. So with regards to VAT, for example, that is a new competence there. Indeed, the recent revision of the VAT directive gives the possibility for the member states to indeed exempt certain repair services from the VAT to, I'll correct, to not exempt, but to apply reduced VAT rates. So again, I believe that this is indeed more of a possibility and a way to go just for the national governments, and this is why we did not include this in the proposal.
Okay, thank you. Shima, anything to say to this?
I can just add to this from a business perspective. You know, this industry is a very low margin industry. It's very, very hard to make this happen. As an entrepreneur, it's very hard to make it happen as a repair shop. So I think for me, it's not just incentives, because yes, we have the bonus in Austria, but it's, you know, trickling on some people. It doesn't fundamentally change how we can make this work in a market environment. We need to change the structure, so we don't need to give out incentives. We make it economically viable for players to build up a repair refurbished business in a way that is so good that the consumer chooses to buy refurbished. And so for us, for example, we have been building up, I mean, yes, taxes are one thing, but I mean, very much regulated by member state. But this is what I said at the start. If we can enable structures that make it easier for entrepreneurs to use spare parts, you know, to be able to operate independently with a margin that allows them to scale, this would be for me the future. And that means that we take away this super power from manufacturers to say what to repair with what parts. Because if we remove that, people become innovative, entrepreneurial, they can set it up themselves. And I think that's much more sustainable and long term than pouring out subsidies here and there. This won't change the game. It might be for some, but if you really want to change it globally, European-wide, large scale, you need to give the structures so they can operate in the same way than a manufacturer. And this for me includes long-term, you know, factoring in externalities, so the emissions into the price, because what then will happen is refurbished products will become even cheaper. And this will turn a lot more consumers to buying refurbished products. So for me, it's taking in externalities, but then enabling, you know, independent refurbishers to operate on their own financially in a good way.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and just to give a final response from the Ecopreneur Europe perspective, we acknowledge that the European Commission does not have, say, the mandate to have a tax shift. That's something up to the Council. At the same time, you see with the energy transition that President Biden in the United States, with one stroke, has given, without any regulation, but just given a huge economic incentive for the energy transition in the United States, so large that years of regulation at the European end make it very complicated. And now, so the same thing can happen for the circular economy at any time. So I don't think that Europe has the time to use the subsidiarity principle any longer. That's just maybe something from my position. And then going back to the questions, and by the way, I forgot to say that we have analyzed all the thumbs up and the support for questions in the chat. And here is another question for Ada. Actually, it's the following. There's a big challenge regarding the lack of skills when it comes to repairing things. Does the proposal take into account this dimension? And that means reskilling, education, etc.
Yes, indeed. So this is one of the problems that we have seen while we were analyzing the repair market and how it works before we came up with the proposal. And I'm afraid that I will sound boring again, but as I said earlier, our focus here is on consumers. So obviously, skills, repair skills, this is a very important element, but it did not really fit the objective here, the very limited objective of this proposal. So I believe that this is something that the Commission needs to further reflect on. But yet again, also in this area, our competences are a bit more limited, I have to say.
Yes. Yeah. And maybe also if member states will give tax incentives, then repair will become more interesting, and then maybe the education will also come into place, right? It's all connected, right? Okay. Anything else to say about this?
No, I think that skills will also come the more demand there is for repair. I think this is also
Exactly.
a bit of a vicious circle right now, that there is not enough demand, so there is not enough people interested in pursuing these jobs, and so there is not enough professional education, and this is why we are where we are, basically. So indeed, we have to focus on increasing the demand, and then I believe also that these other elements will come easier into place.
Okay, thank you, Anna. And then there is a question for Shima. It's the following. Are you assessing different brands in terms of repairability? And would it be a good idea to score them based on your experiences with different brands?
I'm not fully sure I understand the question.
Okay. Is there anybody from the audience that can that rose this question, and maybe they can raise their hand so that we can give them the floor? Ah, I see there's one hand raised. Let me see if I can find this person.
Hi, you
Yes.
found me. Yes.
Okay.
It's
Can you
Tuğçe from.
can
Yes,
you
can
give
you hear
us?
me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yes.
Please
So
explain.
it's Tuğçe from ACR Plus. I was wondering if, because you have access to this data, right? You are going through all these different brands, different types of refurbished items. So do you also have an analysis of which brands are more repairable than others? And would it be possible to score them, to be able to say these brands are doing better than others, so there's like a kind of motivation for them to do better?
Yeah, good question. So generally, there are two brands
Thank
that are
you.
most, thank you, that are most desired by consumers, according to our data and what we see in our sales, is of course Apple products. So all along iPhone, especially iPhone 11, and then in the laptops, MacBooks. So it's actually in terms of brands, we're talking about 2, 3, 4 brands. And then it's essentially what I said before, for the first that I mentioned, they're repairable, but very often if you put in a different battery, then sort of this signal comes off, which doesn't create trust amongst consumers. We are a marketplace, so we set quality standards and then bring on board specialized refurbishers that then are allowed to sell, their full product portfolio. So we don't tell one, you can't do this or you can't do that. What we're trying really to do is to educate the consumer what it means if, for example, they get a signal like that because a different battery is used, and to make them really understand that this is not a problem in itself. They can still use the phone as such. I think an important part in terms of repairability is also many consumers still demand 100% battery, even though 90 or 80% battery would also work exactly as fine. So I think for us, the key part is really trying to communicate what they get when they buy refurbished, and that it's not a bad thing, and thereby increase the demand for it. And then for some brands, of course, it's a bit more trickier. So if you think about vacuum cleaners and coffee machines, of course, it gets much more trickier because every product is sort of differently refurbished. Same with e-bikes, for example. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a question for ADA by Thomas Opzomer from iFixit. Thomas, are you listening, and can you maybe speak your question out yourself? Otherwise, I will do it. I see a hand coming up. Yes, please.
Hi, yes, so regarding this universal repair code form, I'm a bit skeptical about that because I don't see how it would actually take into account diagnosis. So how can a repairer give an upfront code for repair if they haven't seen the device and if they haven't had the time to look at it? Let's take a car example. I think you don't need to be a car mechanic to know if I tell you that my car doesn't start, I cannot tell at the distance whether it's the battery or the starter motor or compression, or it could be any number of issues. So if I now have to give an upfront price for that repair, all I can do is just put a default price, which will be cheap in case it's a really significant failure, or it will be expensive if it's a small thing. So is that really that useful for the consumer?
Yes, maybe indeed. Thank you for this question. To clarify, there's no obligation to make it completely upfront without seeing the product. So the idea of the form is that you have a right to receive the form before you enter into the repair service contract. So it very well may be that I'm taking this car to you to the garage, and I'm saying I have a problem. I would like to have the form, and then the repairer will say that, well, I need a day to analyze, or an hour or half an hour. If he's not able to understand immediately where's the defect, then he needs to take his time, analyze, and this is also the reason why he has a right to charge for delivering this form. So he needs to analyze and then be able to provide information to the consumer with the details of the repair. So it's not an upfront kind of blind indication of more or less this will be like that, but I have to still open the car and see what's going to happen there.
Do you think that will work? And I'm asking this to Thomas.
Well, it sounds as if it's just a way of formalizing something that is already happening. So it's mostly streamlining and making sure then that everything happens in the same format. I don't see any problem with implementing that, but I also don't think it will make a big difference. But my criticism or my worry was not applicable if I understand how it will be applied in practice.
Yeah, if I can, Ada, I have a follow-up question, because my question is that how will this platform foster things that are already happening? And for instance, there are NGOs that are doing it. There was one from Slovakia. I know Repanet in Austria. There is Fix That Shirt. There is Mendy in the fashion industry. These are companies that are matching the request for repair to the suppliers of repair. And these are the last two are commercial companies, startups. So how will your platform interact with those? Will they help them, or will there be competition to them? What do you think?
Well, of course, when we did propose this solution, we try to understand a little bit what's there on the market, but obviously we have also limited resources. So what we have seen, and one of the reasons why we have put this idea of the platform there, is that we have seen such a platform working in France that apparently has a lot of success. Now, the details of how this would work would be to be decided by the member state. If indeed there are different national organizations, companies already active in this sector, it would be up to the member state to decide that if there is already enough competition in the repair for certain products, maybe the platform could only cover others. It is a little bit difficult now to say, because indeed there can be so many different situations depending on the member state. If indeed this is more and more happening, what you're saying, and there are more and more actors involved already there, definitely this will be raised further in the negotiations, in the council, in the parliament, and we will have to make some adjustment and maybe indeed insert certain clarifications if that would be needed.
Okay, thank you. I think I move on to another question and another topic, and it's the topic of consumers raised by several people in the chat. I'll just read it, and maybe for any speaker, but maybe Christina can be the first to answer. How would you approach the change in mindset of consumers who still prefer shiny and new over pre-used and refurbished? Which stakeholders and enablers are necessary to include in order to facilitate a significant change? Christina, could you say something about that?
Sure. Well, of course, we do believe that to a certain extent that is true, that there are certain consumers and there is a tendency to also want new shiny things. But what we think is really underlooked is the big group of people that are already doing their best and really trying to make sustainable choices, but it's just impossible or very expensive. We have a problem also of price, of the fact that if buying new stays cheaper than repairing, we don't think that it's going to be realistic. We don't think that people are going to go for it, and that's why we need to tackle it. Then of course there is this tendency, these huge huge marketing strategies to always also push for cultural obsolescence of devices, of objects in general. And we do think that this should also be tackled, because it's unfair, it's unrealistic. We are already at 1.1 global warming levels, and we said that the limit is 1.5. So do we really have time for all these strategies just to make profit? So but that is a much broader discourse that what we can tackle probably.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Shima, would you want to say something about this also?
Yeah, sure. So we do tons of consumer research. I think there is two main aspects to it. So one, I think repair and refurbishment is economically viable for very high-priced items, you know, like the iPhones, like the e-bakes of this world. And then you can achieve a lower price. And the lower price is the key anchor point for customers to substitute new to refurbished. We would love it to be sustainability. We don't see it in our data. So the customer that first switches from a new to a refurbished or repaired device is a customer that comes because of price. That changes once the customer, you know, has bought it, has understood this is working well, it's not breaking down. Then people come back due to sustainability, and they become more and more proud to sort of, we call it doing the right thing, right? Consuming in a less or a more sustainable way. But I think the question is really, how can we extend that to many more products that don't have an initially high value to start with? And this is still more expensive. This is where our structures are still rigged in favor of new products, what I said before, where we need to price in externalities. However, what we also see is that it needs players, large players like us, like eBay, like other marketplaces or other players that really can put together a good offering that makes it very easy, very convenient for customers to purchase refurbished for many of them. So not just, you know, the very young, super eco-conscious person, but everyone, my grandmother, my parents, my friends. So I think it's really, how can we create a consumer experience that's easy, trustful, convenient, because this plus with the price will convince a lot more people to switch and try out refurbished and try out repair. So I think it's really, how can we aggregate it somewhere to really push the demand? I agree with Ada there. I think many of us sort of live in a bubble where we think demand is there, but demand is still at the start. We need to push it much more. And for me, it's about convincing consumers repairing and refurbishing is a trustful, convenient, and just really great thing to do.
Okay. Thanks, Shima. Ada, anything also to add about the consumers?
Yes, indeed, I could just add maybe one element. I think something I didn't mention is that in our study, we have made an analysis on the type of consumers, and we have seen that there is a really large proportion of consumers that indeed are very enthusiastic replacers, and they rarely even consider possibility of repair. So they just like to replace. Then there are others that indeed want to repair, and then they face difficulties to repair. And then there are somewhere those in the middle, right? They are like they can be switched. So sometimes they can repair, sometimes they can replace. And when we looked at the reasons why consumers indeed go for these new fancy products, they keep on changing. Of course, there's a proportion of those consumers that simply like to have these new products for technology reasons. For example, if there's a new update of the iPhone, they just want to have a new update of the iPhone. But to a large extent, this is also driven by the social norms. So I think what we as a society we need to move into is more to present using a repaired good as something cool in exchange to buying a new car or a new computer as something cool. And this is basically something that we have accumulated so far through decades of associating having something new as an equivalent to wealth, which is something positive, and we are reinforcing this with in our society. So this needs to, I think, happen. We need to just, I don't know, even through the use of influencers. I think now they are very, very powerful to kind of feed in, to nurture this idea that yes, repair, this is something that is really popular. This is fancy. And once we accept this as a society as a really something positive, then I think more demand can follow. But this is, I'm afraid, not the task for the Commission.
Okay, no, I get that, but still, I like very much what you say about that it should be cool, and I think some younger people see it that way, but it's still a minority, and not all young people. So I think that's really a way to go forward. Well, we're approaching the end now. I have one last question. I think it was raised by at least also by Martin Charter. Martin, could you maybe ask your question about the repair cafes, etc., and the consequences? Are you there, Martin? If not, I will just read it. So, what are the implications of the proposal for the repair cafes and independent actors? How can we promote these activities? Who wants to say something about this? Christina, maybe?
Yeah, I'm happy to give a first answer. Yeah, this is part of our critique to the proposal, unfortunately, because we are happy to see that repair cafes as a community, repair activities are going to be featured in the online platform. So that's there's a possibility for them to be featured, which is really good. But again, since the proposal is not really granting larger access to spare parts, larger access to repair information, also for informal repairers and end users, we think that the impact is not as big as it could have been. And indeed, repair cafes are also a wonderful communication tool to show that repair can be also fun. It can also be a community activity, and it can teach lots of things. So it's also linking to the previous question a little bit, but maybe Ada also wants to add something.
No, indeed, as you said, Christina, we were thinking on giving more visibility to repair cafes in the context of the platform. Now, again, to maybe come back to the point that you raised on accessibility of spare parts. Indeed, I agree with you that probably more can be done. But what we also need to bear in mind, I think, is that accessibility of spare parts and the requirements under the eco design has, I mean, they have entered into force very, very recently. So we are not really seeing yet the full impact of this. I understand this can be slow, and I understand, as you said, that of course it takes time to adopt new eco design measures. But I think we should also see that may be something that is not spoken about often enough. That in eco design, the access to spare parts is not only for the repairs, but also for the end users. There are certain spare parts, indeed, and instruction manuals that have to be given directly to users, and this will include repair cafes, this will include consumers. So I believe that we are heading in the good direction, even though it could be probably faster. And what we also need to see is that every time we talk about access to spare parts, we need to look at different interests, right? So giving access to all spare parts to everyone can also be dangerous. This is one of the arguments, right, that manufacturers always raise, that we cannot give all the access to all the spare parts because repair still needs to be sometimes made in a safe environment. So there are also some limitations there.
Okay, thank you, Ada. And please stay on the screen because we're now approaching the end of this circular talk. And I'm trying to really briefly summarize what has been said, but it's almost impossible. And then, Ada, I would give you the last word to, just to explain to us what you think European Commission can do with it and what happens with the further process. So, trying to summarize, most people think it's not ambitious enough. Many things were missed by the stakeholders and persons here and experts here in the audience. Then another issue, or one of these things missed, is the lack of price incentives. In this discussion, we could not really find a solution, and indeed, probably the solution lies with the member states. A third element that was not discussed here, but is the timeline. And there was a specific question about that from Advance, and also a question that I have, because it's really we're now going to the end of this European Commission. The elections are closing in. This proposal was delayed enormously. Fortunately, it was launched at the end of 2022, but now it's in the Parliament. We know that they tried to have an opinion with 2 committees before the summer. But so could you say something about the ambition and things that can be added, about the pricing and about the timeline, please?
Yes, indeed. Well, on the ambition, I have to say that for those of you that were really interested and were really following the initiative from the beginning, you could have seen that in the call for evidence, we had a number of different measures that we were considering. And the thing is that at the end of the day, we had to ask ourselves the question, what will really be effective? And we had to, for whatever we do propose, analyze costs and benefits, and for everybody, for the industry, for consumers, impact on the environment. And these interests are not always very easy to balance. And so I understand that what we have came up with for some of you can look like not ambitious enough, but we need to really have evidence for whatever we are proposing. Now, that being said, indeed, there is a lot of interest in the Parliament to go further than what we have now, and I think we might see a lot of changes to this proposal. So, indeed, the Parliament, the Council, they will have the time to propose the amendments, and we will see in which direction this will go. Now, on the timeline, from the information that I have gathered so far, it looks like there is a very strong interest and ambition to indeed finish the proposal within this mandate of the European Parliament. So for the moment, we are quite positive that this will be feasible. Also on the side of the Council, the upcoming Spanish presidency is very ambitious on that file. I cannot be sure for now how it's going to go. Excuse me, but we are indeed quite positive that this will be done still within this mandate. But it will also depend indeed on the number of possible amendments and actually the reactions from the Parliament. So A lot remains to be seen, but let's keep fingers crossed that indeed we can move it forward quite soon.
Okay, well, I like to end with a positive note. This is not always happening in discussions about circular economy, so thank you for that, Ada. And then I want to thank all the speakers and panelists, and also the introduction, and in general the ECESP and the ECESP Leadership Group that organized this. And then with this, we will end this recording and this webinar, this circular talk. So. And in my case, I'm going to have King's Day because I'm doing this in my free time. It's a national holiday in the Netherlands. And I wish you a very good day wherever you are in Europe. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.